Hello, how are you guys? We are going to continue with this series in biology, specifically because I want you to understand why. Well, in my case, I believe of a creator, a designer. You'll see what I'm talking about. I don't believe that this body, our body, was created by nature. I cannot comprehend that since we are so specific and so perfect in terms of our metabolic, our body organs and body tissue, and the immune system. In this presentation, I'm going to talk about the cell membrane, the skin. You see that? Let me see. Right here, the cell membrane. You see that tissue there. Because what we see with our naked eyes is not necessarily what really is here. It's not. I'm going to talk about proteins. I'm going to talk about enzymes. I'm going to talk about cell identification markers. Yes, like Social Security, like your passport, like your driver license, like the plate of your card, the plate numbers of your card. Things that are just unique for you. I'm going to talk about hormones. I'm going to talk about drugs. I'm going to talk about neurotransmitters like dopamine, serotonin. I'm going to talk about organ transplant and organ rejection, infections, immune system, and immune system disorders. All of that is what I'm going to bring to you. Stay put. It will be a few medical information, yes, but I will make it as simple as I can. And for my students on Saturday, you know what's coming to you? Your test. Yes. About perhaps maybe 15 questions from this presentation. I hope you like it. See you soon.
El doctor Dantego allá está aquí, pa' ti, pa' mí, pa' ti. El doctor Dantego allá llegó y ya está aquí, pa' ti, pa' mí. Dantego allá está aquí.
All right. I love how Angelina Jolie looks alike. Her glowing face. Look at the skin. Look at those eyes. She looked beautiful and healthy. But if we enhance her skin and then that part of the skin would also amplify that, we are going to see in reality what your skin and my skin look like under the microscope. And I'm going to relate this pandemic that we still see some cases on it with COVID-19, SARS-CoV-2, and the relationship that I'm going to use with that pathogenic, that virus in our cell membrane. If you look in this graph, we see two layers in blue. I'm gonna mark it for you guys. I'm gonna put it here. Let me get the right one. Yeah, right. You see this portion here, this portion right here, and this portion right here. That looks blue, right? Like a balloon with two strings, right? Well, that's your skin cell membrane, which we have an inner cell membrane and an outer cell membrane. And this that you see over here, we call that a receptor site, like a door. And it happens to be that SARS-CoV-2 enters our body organ through that door, ACE2 receptor site. So remember, if we talk about receptor site, we're talking about a door and a specific door. So when we get vaccines, specifically for this COVID-19, what in the production is made is something to block that protein or that receptor site. So when you and I, when we got the vaccine, because I had the vaccine, what they were giving me was a genetic information in the event that the proteins of this SARS-CoV-2 could easily adapt or attach to my ACE2 receptor site or my door. And when that happens, the body creates an antibody that will attach to this protein and it will block that pathogen or that virus or that protein to enter inside of my cell through that specific door, which is ACE2 receptor site. You see that we have in the skin a cell membrane that has many doors, many doors for specific things. And this is what I tell you, why I believe we were created by a designer. I call it el monstruo, el duro, God. And why? You'll see on the next slide. Okay, so let's start now. Imagine all of you, okay, that, let me mark this so that you will see. Imagine that this here, this portion over here, all right, this portion over here is, let me make a little bigger. Let me erase it. Let me make a little bigger so that we could see it better. Imagine from here. Imagine from here. This part over here is a double layer. We call it phospholipid bilayer. Phospho from phosphate. And if you see, in this phospholipid bilayer, we have like a balloon, and then we have like two strings attached to it, right? Okay, now it happens to be, let me erase this, that this is what your skin, my skin, each tissue cell membrane in our body is made of. So just look what it says, 80% water, cytoplasmic fluid. That means that this portion over here, let me just make it in red here. All this portion over here, all this portion over here, all that, this is water, okay? All of that is what? Water. Let me erase it. Okay. All of that is what? Water. Very good. Now also, in this area here, all of this is also water. The only difference is that this water is outside of the cell membrane. Let me erase it. Okay, so once again, we have that this part over here is the outer cell membrane, which faces tissue fluid. And this part over here is the inner cell membrane, which faces the inside of the cell. Now, why do we need to make this acknowledgement? Well, it happens to be that in order for a cell to be alive, it must be surrounded by water, by fluid. Yes. If tissue cells are not surrounded by water, by fluid, it will die. And that is the reason why your skin, the outer layer of your skin, is full of dead tissue cell. Indeed. So when you put creams, when you humidify it, when you moisturize it, it looks glowing. It looks nice, right? Why? Because cell needs to be surrounded by tissue. So when you don't drink enough water, remember that you and I, we are made of 60% of water. And each cell, like liver cell, brain cell, pancreas cell, okay, uterus, any cell in your body is made up of 80% of fluid, of water. And then 20% of others, such as nutrients and stuff like that, that we're going to talk later on. So if you look on the left graph, let me mark it here. If you look over here, if you look over here, if you look over here, if you look again over here, those things we call the receptor site. What are receptor site? Say it with me. A door. What is a receptor site? A door. What is a receptor site? A door. So if we, for example, amplify this area here, I'm going to show you now. Give me 1 second. If we amplify this area here, see this area here? From here to here, we're going to have all of this. This is under the microscope. So all of this structure that we see here, all of that, that's what we have. That's what we see under the microscope. Let me erase it. Okay. So that means that what we see with our naked eyes is not really what we have as a structure or anatomical portion in our tissue. Now, this phospholipid bilayer is like a crazy one, because in one side of that balloon, it loves water. But those two streams hate water. That is fat soluble. It means it loves fatty tissue. So our creator, think about this. If your cell is not surrounded by fluid, it will die. Now see and check how the inner cell membrane is inundated with fluid, the cytoplasm, and the outside of the cell membrane is also covered with tissue fluid. Isn't that strictly convenience or design? Let's continue. Besides these things, we also have enzymes which are embedded in this phospholipid cell membrane bilayer. As you can see here, Okay, this here, this enzyme is embedded in this phospholipid bilayer, but it's sticking out, as you can see here, it's sticking out to the inside of the cell, which is full of water, right? Now, I also have another protein or membrane or site or door that also faces the outer portion of the cell, such as what you could see here, which we call it transporter or carrier proteins. This is what transport big molecules, such as sugar, such as hormones, such as drugs. So we have these embedded proteins not only in the outside of the cell membrane, but also in the inside of the cell membrane. Now, you see this here? You see this here? That like a tube, it looks like a tube. Okay, let me erase it now. That is a specific for ions, like potassium, like calcium, electrolyte, sodium. So yes, we have in our skin, in our cell membrane, many doors, many receptor sites, specifically for calcium, which the door open and closes. For sodium, which that door open and closes. For potassium, for hormone, for neurotransmitters. Everything in our cell membrane was designed specifically for specific substances. Can you imagine that? Can someone else tell me that that was created by nature? Why do I need to have a door, a receptor site, just for sugar, or just for sodium, or just for potassium, or just for hormones such as estrogen? In the event of estrogen, for example, or in the event of medications or drugs, let's say this. Let's say I'm going to give you to a male an estrogen hormone. Let's say I'm going to inject it. What's going to happen with that estrogen hormone in his body? Practically nothing. Why? Because male, let's say in the breast, he doesn't have a receptor for estrogen. It cannot enter. Now, let's talk about a female. I have a female in which she has her uterus, and I'm going to give her estrogen. Guess what? In the uterus, we do have, or they do have, a door specifically for estrogen. And that's how basically many medications work. They create the drugs or the medication that will attach, that will have an affinity specifically to a specific door designed for that drugs or for that protein or for that enzyme or for that nutrients or minerals. If you take a pill, that is, let's say you have a headache and you take a pill, how that pills knows that I have to go to whatever place of your body to block or to take that pain away. That pill didn't went to school. She doesn't have a map. She has the key to go to a specific door. So there are many organs that have many doors in the outer cell membrane and also in the inner cell membrane. But in other tissue, there is no receptor site for that drugs or for that medication or for that mineral. Therefore, when I give you a medication or when we get a medication, it will go specifically to those receptor sites, to those doors in our body, in our tissue cell. Now, check this out. There is also something that is called carbohydrate recognition site or glycoprotein. Look at it right here. right here. You see that? Right there. That, you know what is that? That's amazing. That is your social security number. That is your passport number. That is your license plate number, because it's a specific for you. That is how your immune system, my immune system, our white blood cells count, our white blood cells recognize our own tissue from a foreign tissue, an invader. Like, for example, bacteria, viruses. They don't have your license plate number. They don't have your social security number because they're not you. And when the white blood cells see that somebody or something is flowing around and they cannot determine, they cannot identify that particle, automatically it will start a process that is known as phagocytosis, in which the white blood cells will engulf, will swallow it, will break it down. That's your immune system. So when we want to get, for example, a organ transplant, we need to look for a specific marker. Meaning, let's say you have a twin brother or a twin sister. Both of you will have the same unique identification cell marker, the same plate number, the same social security, the same passport number. Now, why twin? Because those identification cell markers is unique to you. Now, you could be brothers and sisters, but you will not have the same identification number or the same plate number. And that is the reason why when anybody's looking for an organ transplant, we are going to look for a match. Match meaning that they are not the same, that they look kind of the same. Normally or usually we found that within the same genetical families, like your brother, your sister, your cousin. But remember, that is not your organ tissue. So it has a different plate number. So when you get that organ transplant, what's going to happen? That your white blood cell will attack them. Yes. And that is the reason why we have to give medication to do what? To lower, to stop, to prevent that the white blood cells goes and attack that foreign tissue, because it doesn't recognize it. It's not supposed to be there. Normally we use glucocorticosteroids or corticosteroids medications that will immunosuppress our immune system, our white blood cells. And that person have to take those medications for life. Because as soon as you stop taking those medications, your immune system, your white blood cells will grow, will multiply, and will attack that organ or that tissue cell membrane. Now, what happened, because I know you have heard immuno or autoimmune disease, right? So what do you understand by auto? Means self, meaning your own. So is somehow there is a problem in which your white blood cells cannot recognize the tissue, the cell membrane, it will attack them. And that is what we know as autoimmune diseases, in which our own immune system, our own white blood cells, will attack our own tissue. An example, Crohn's disease, Graves' disease, Hashimoto, lupus erythematosus, juvenile diabetes, multiple sclerosis. Let me just give you an idea. If your white blood cells attack the nervous system, then you develop, or we're going to call it, multiple sclerosis. If your immune system attacks your heart tissue cells, we're going to call that rheumatic heart disease. If your immune system attacks the joints of your body, we're going to call that rheumatoid arthritis. You see, when your immune system does not recognize, for whatever reason, any tissue in the body, it will attack it. It will destroy that. And that's when you have an organ transplant rejection. Why? Because the immune system phagocyte that tissue that was not or does not belong here because it has a different plate number, social security number, driver license number, passport number. Now, let's go back again what I was saying before. Why we have this recognition site, and why do we call it glycoprotein? Glyco means glucose, and protein, you already know, is a protein that could work as an enzyme to catalyze or to do something. It was put there, right? Why? Remember, each one of us has a specific recognition site and a specific license plate and a specific identification number. That's how your body can differentiate if a bacteria, fungi, virus comes to attack you. He will know how to defend that. But when you and I has autoimmune disease, in which your own immune system cannot recognize the own tissue cells, it will attack, and that's what we call autoimmune disease. Now, it is amazing that from just the naked eye, we cannot see those channels, those doors, those identification markers, but that's the reality. That's what makes your cell membrane. So once again, when you need to have your immune system super strong, it will all depend on how your white blood cells can recognize invaders, how your cells, mitochondria, the energy production, how your all body immune system is strong enough to defend you. So when we talk about ozone, when we talk about chelation, when we talk about alpha lipoic acid, when we talk about glutathione, when we talk about high doses of beta vitamin C, when we talk about vitamins and minerals, when we talk about amino acids, when we talk about water, they all represent nutrition and immune support to you, to your body. So even if you don't see what's happening to a cellular level, there is a lot of stuff that is happening to a cellular level in which you cannot see, in which you cannot feel it. Do you understand now why when you see your skin, you're not really seeing all these doors or receptor sites or hormones doors or proteins or the phospholipid bilayer? So medicine and science has something else, more of the thing that you cannot see with the naked eye. I hope with this you understood that we need to drink water. We need to be properly hydrated because each cell of your body, that cell that says cytoplasm, that says cell membrane, that could be your brain cells. It could be your liver cells. It could be your pancreas cells. All right? It could be your GI, your gastrointestinal, your eyes, your nose. Each cell of your body inside is made up of 80% of water. Our whole body organ and system, you and I, we are made of 60% of water. So if you don't drink water, you're not making your cells to function as they should function. When you don't eat properly, without sugars, without, let's say, fibers, without proper nutrition balance, when you are saturated with metals, heavy metals, all of that will block these enzymes, these channels, these proteins. They will inactivate all these things and your body will not be able to function properly. So this is the basic principle in detoxification, in giving your body the tools so that he could defend himself. All right, so let's summarize this. When you see your skin, any cell membrane in your body, is it made of one layer? No, 2 layers. And how do we call that layer? Phospholipid bilayer. It's made up of a phosphate and 2 strings attached, fatty acid, that they love fatty. And the phosphate, like the balloon, love water. All right? And that's how we could tackle, or that's how we could put medications in the forms of water soluble. Soluble means that it dissolves in water. And that is also how we want to have medications in lipid or cholesterol, because cholesterol or fatty tissue or fatty substance will dissolve or will get along in fat tissue, in the fat environment. So we have medications like vitamins that are water soluble, and we have vitamins that are fat soluble. For that, we're going to make another video in terms of vitamins and minerals. So what I'm trying to say with this is that look how amazing God created our body. So many doors, so many receptor sites, so many specific function. For example, dopamine neurotransmitter cannot go through a calcium ion channel or a calcium receptor site. So when you hear, let me give them a calcium ion blocker medication or a beta blocker medication, what is telling you is that they're going to give you something to block that channel. You see that? So once again, your immune system, your white blood cells, your cell membrane is full of, embedded in the inside portion of the cell membrane and the outer portion of the cell membrane, proteins, enzymes, identification cell markers, water in the inside and in the outside of the cell membrane, all to keep yourself alive. Once again, I hope you like what I gave you. And you know how many questions I'm going to bring my students for class on Saturday. Think about it. Bye-bye, guys. I hope you like it. I hope you learned something. And if you didn't, let me know. And I will try to do it better next time. Take care and have a good day.